fertilization is morally right by me. So, who here by a raise of hands wants kids? Okay. If you're like me, having kids is a really big dream and it's a really big goal for you in your life, and it's something that you're really looking forward to. Now, imagine after possibly months or even years of trying to have a child, you go to the doctor and you find out that you physically can't. You have some infertility problem or some reproductive issues. Your dreams could be crushed. Your entire life goals could be going down the drain. You'd be devastated. But luckily today, with the many medical procedures, there is one called In-Vitro fertilization, or IVF, and it's a viable option to help you with your reproductive issues. So today I'm going to cover what it is, how it's done, what it treats, and some people who have had this done to them firsthand or have experienced it. So first of all, what is it? In vitro fertilization is one of many assisted reproductive technologies, or ART technologies. Basically, with in vitro fertilization, it is manually inseminating an egg in a lab and then re-putting it into the woman's uterus. It basically cuts out the middleman of the fallopian tubes, the ovaries, or any other thing that could be causing problems with your eggs. It also helps with male infertility as well. Now, with the reproductive issues, many women suffer from them, but it is also men, despite what most people believe. And with this audience, not 99% of them were favorable for this option, and there was one neutral. So, now you know what it is, but how it's done. Step one is the medication. The woman is prescribed medication that stimulates her ovaries to produce mass amounts of eggs, so that when they get to step two, to gathering specimens, there is a large abundance of them, and that gives the doctors a better chance of gathering viable eggs. Step two is gathering the specimens. The doctors go in with a medical procedure called laparoscopy, and it surgically removes the eggs from the woman's uterus, or from the woman's ovaries, and they also collect a sperm sample from the man. And then step three is inseminate. They take a viable egg and a viable sperm and they fertilize it in a petri dish. And this is where some children born through this procedure are given the name test tube babies. But altogether they're still very normal. And then step four is implant. They replace the egg into the woman's uterus and it attaches to the uterine wall. And during implantation stage, they tend to implant multiple eggs to ensure that at least one attaches to the wall. Now, with IVF and all ART technologies, it treats reproductive issues such as blocked fallopian tubes, male infertility, ovulation disorders, premature ovarian failure, uterine fibrosis, and genetic disorder carriers. Now, for women or men who carry genetic disorders, with in vitro fertilization, when they harvest the eggs or sperm, they can put them through a screening process that will allow them to genetically code each one and look at their genes to determine whether they carry a genetic disorder such as Huntington's disease or Alzheimer's, and they can choose viable eggs and sperm that are perfectly healthy and don't have any genetic disorders. Now, with these, now that you know what the procedure is, you get to meet the very first child born through in vitro fertilization. This is Louise Joy Brown. She was born July 25th, 1978 in England. She was actually delivered by the man who came up with the technique of in vitro fertilization. She was delivered by him. And she was born very healthy. She was 5 pounds, 12 ounces. She was beautiful. And her parents, John and Leslie Brown, had been trying to have a baby for 7 years before they finally turned to the doctor, and he suggested IVF. At that time, it was an experimental treatment, but on their first time, she was conceived, and then 3 years later, her parents turned to IVF again and had her younger sister, Holly. So, with every medical procedure and most good things in life, there are drawbacks. With this medical procedure, it is very expensive. Each procedure typically takes about $20,000 per treatment, which is a lot. Now, and of course, with less than 50% of these procedures resulting in a successful pregnancy, this means that multiple treatments may need to happen. And with the multiple treatments, that means that $20,000 has to be paid each time, which can be a lot for families who can't afford that. But for many people who really want children and who really want that in their life, they aren't going to put a price on their child. They aren't going to put a price on its life, and they usually come up with a way to afford it. Now you met Louise Brown, who was the first IVF baby born, but these are some celebrities and common people that we know who have used IVF to have their own children. First up, Khloe Kardashian. Her body doesn't ovulate properly, so she doesn't get her periods, and this was very devastating to her when she and her first husband were trying to have a child. Now, after 2 treatments, it did not work, and she still did not end up getting pregnant, and but after that, she ended up getting divorced, so she did say she was happy it didn't work, but she did attempt it, and she did attempt to get pregnant through IVF. Next up is Courtney Cox. You might know her from Friends. She has infertility issues, and through that, she later, through 2 treatments of IVF, she had conceived her daughter in April, and then gave birth to her 9 months later, and she was perfectly healthy. And then next up is Chrissy Teigen, that is John Legend's wife. Both of them have been trying to have a child for many years, and they were unable to because they both have reproductive issues. But finally, their daughter was conceived after 2 treatments, which seems to be the lucky number with IVF, and she was born very healthy. And with those people, although Kardashian was not successful, they still tried it, and they were both using it as a helpful tool to get past their reproductive issues. Now that you know what IVF is, what it does, how it's done, what it treats, and you know some people that have tried it, you can share my thoughts on why this is a moral act. It not only brings joys to families who want children so badly, but it also brings life to a child. And there is nothing better than having a child and having your dreams come true in the end. So, IVF is a morally right act, and thank you for listening.